People who've been to prison, what's the most wholesome thing you saw? I was doing 7 years for Grand Theft Auto when I got assigned to work in the prison barbershop. Wasn't because I was good with scissors or anything. I just kept my mouth shut and didn't cause problems. The job paid like $2 a day, but you got phone privileges once a week, and honestly, it beat laundry duty. The barbershop was this tiny room with 3 old chairs and mirrors that had seen better days. Most guys came in, got their cut, and left without saying much. But something about sitting in that chair made people talk. Maybe it was the routine of it, or just having someone stand behind you with scissors instead of looking you in the eye. This older guy named Raymond started coming in every 2 weeks right on schedule. He was probably 60 in for armed robbery. Had these sad eyes that made you think he'd been carrying something heavy for way too long. First few cuts, he barely said a word. Then, one day about 3 months into my barber hop gig, he just broke down mid-haircut. I'm standing there with scissors in my hand, and this grown man starts sobbing like his heart's been ripped out. Turns out, his wife had stopped writing letters. 6 months of silence. The last letter she sent basically said she was tired of waiting and might be moving on with her life. I never knew how to write back proper, he told me, wiping his eyes with the barber cape. Always just wrote about the weather and asked how she was doing. 32 years married, and I never told her the stuff that mattered. That's when I got this crazy idea. I'd always been decent with words. Used to write poems and stuff before I screwed up my life. So, I offered to help him write a letter back just once to see if she'd respond. We spent an hour after his haircut talking about his wife Helen. How she used to make these elaborate Sunday dinners for the whole neighborhood. How she'd stay up late reading romance novels and leave sticky notes with funny quotes on his lunchbox. How he regretted never telling her that coming home to her was the best part of every single day for 3 decades. I wrote all of that down, and more. Made it sound like Raymond talking, but with all the love he felt, but never knew how to say. We mailed it that week. 2 weeks later, Raymond burst into the barbershop waving an envelope like he'd won the lottery. Helen had written back. 3 pages this time, instead of her usual half-page updates. She said she'd cried reading his letter because it sounded like the man she fell in love with 40 years ago. That became our routine. Every week, Raymond would come in for a trim he didn't really need, and we'd work on another letter. I'd listen to his stories about their early marriage, their kids, the dreams they used to share, and I'd help him put it all on paper in ways that felt real and honest. The letters from Helen got longer. She started including photos again, then drawings from their grandkids. After about 6 months, she mentioned maybe visiting when she saved up enough money. This went on for a year and a half. I wrote probably 60 letters for Raymond, and Helen wrote back every single time. Guys on the block started calling me the love doctor as a joke, but they said it with respect. Then one day, Raymond came in and said something that almost made me cry myself. I think I can write this next one on my own. He did. And Helen wrote back to that one too. When Raymond got released 8 months later, the entire cell block cheered like we'd won the Super Bowl. Guys were hooting and clapping, and even the guards were smiling. This old man who'd been broken and forgotten had his family back. And somehow that felt like hope for all of us. 2 months after he left, I got a letter addressed to me personally. It was from Helen, written in this careful handwriting on nice stationery. Inside was a wedding photo of her and Raymond from 1987. Both of them young and grinning like idiots. The note was short, but it hit me harder than my sentencing. Thank you for giving me my husband back. I kept that photo tucked in my mirror for the rest of my sentence. Music. I was doing 7 years for Grand Theft Auto when they moved me to the prison barbershop. Not because I had any special talent with scissors. Honestly, I'd never cut a head of hair in my life. But because I kept quiet, didn't start fights, and didn't complain. The job paid maybe $2 a day, but you got a weekly phone call, and, most importantly, it kept you out of laundry duty. For me, that was worth more than the money. The shop itself wasn't much. A cramped room with 3 cracked leather chairs, buzzing fluorescent lights, and mirrors so scratched you could barely make out your reflection. Most guys came in, muttered what they wanted, and left without looking back. But something about sitting in that chair, cape around your shoulders, made people talk. Maybe it was because I was standing behind them, scissors in hand, instead of staring them in the face. Whatever it was, I learned quickly that haircuts turned into confessions. That's how I met Raymond. He was an older guy, pushing 60, in for armed robbery from way back. He had these heavy, sad eyes, like he'd been carrying guilt on his back longer than I'd been alive. For the first few visits, he barely spoke, just sat stiff in the chair, eyes fixed on the floor. Then, about 3 months in, something cracked. I was halfway through trimming his hair when his shoulders started shaking. At first I thought he was laughing, but then I realized this tough old man was crying, tears rolling down his cheeks, right there in my chair. I froze with the scissors in my hand. In prison, you don't see that. You see anger, bravado, jokes, but not this. Through broken words, he told me his wife had stopped writing. 6 months of silence. The last letter she sent said she couldn't keep waiting, that she might move on. I never knew how to write proper, he said, voice shaking. Always just wrote about the weather. 32 years married, and I never told her the real things. Not once. Something inside me clicked. Before prison, I used to write poems and little stories. Nothing fancy, but words came easy to me. So I told him, "Let me help you. Just once. We'll write her a letter together." After his cut, we sat in the corner of that shabby shop for an hour. He talked about Helen, his wife, like she was the sun in his life. How she made big Sunday dinners for the whole block. How she left silly sticky notes in his lunchbox. How every day, no matter how hard work was, coming home to her was his favorite part. I wrote it all down. Not polished, not flowery, just honest. His voice, his heart, finally on paper. We mailed it that week. 2 weeks later, Raymond burst into the shop waving an envelope like it was a golden ticket. Helen had written back. 3 pages this time, not the short updates he used to get. She said the letter sounded like the man she fell in love with 40 years ago. For the first time in months, Raymond smiled. That became our ritual. Every 2 weeks, haircut or not, he came to see me. We'd talk, and I'd write. 60 letters over a year and a half. Letters full of memories, regrets, love, promises. And every time, Helen wrote back. Longer letters, photos of the grandkids, even little drawings. One time, she sent a sketch of their wedding day Raymond had never seen before. The guys on the block started calling me the Love Doctor. They laughed at first, but deep down, they respected it. Because those letters weren't just words, they were hope. Hope that maybe love could outlast bars, fences, and mistakes. Then, one day, Raymond sat down in the chair and said something that nearly knocked me over. "I think I can write this one myself." I didn't argue. I just handed him a pen and watched. And you know what? Helen wrote back to that letter too. 8 months later, Raymond's number came up. Release day. The entire block erupted. Guys were cheering like we'd won a championship. Even the guards cracked smiles. Watching that old man walk out, knowing he wasn't walking alone anymore, it did something to all of us. It reminded us that maybe we weren't as broken as we thought. 2 months after he left, I got a letter addressed to me. Not from Raymond, from Helen. Careful handwriting on good paper. Inside was a photo. Her and Raymond on their wedding day, 1987, both grinning like fools in love. The note was short, but it hit me harder than my sentencing. "Thank you for giving me my husband back." I tucked that photo into the corner of the cracked barber shop mirror. For the rest of my sentence, every time I picked up scissors, I saw it. Proof that even in the ugliest places, something good could grow. And that's the most wholesome thing I ever saw in prison. Story 2, she said. "My ex is staying the night. You can crash on the couch." I nodded. Good idea. While they slept, I cleared out my belongings. In the morning, they woke up with goodbye notes stuck on their heads. Either two male thought my 3-year relationship with Clara, 30, had that, especially this last year we've lived together in my apartment. But lately, the foundation had been cracking. Vague texts, distant behavior. I noticed when the load-bearing walls of a relationship start to groan, the catastrophic failure came on a Wednesday. She walked in, avoiding my eyes. "Hey," she said, artificially bright. "So, you know Marcus?" Of course I knew Marcus, 31. The ghost of boyfriend past. The one she swore was just a good friend. His name popped up on her phone far too often. "Yeah, I know Marcus," I said. "Well, his apartment has this insane pipe burst. Total disaster. He has nowhere to go." She put on a performance of wringing her hands. "I told him he could crash here for a night or two." I stayed silent, letting the audacity settle. She was asking to bring her ex-boyfriend into my home. Okay, where is he going to sleep? Relief flickered across her face. She thought she'd won. "Well, this is the awkward part," she said with a nervous laugh. "I was thinking to make it less weird for him. He could just take our bed." The blood in my veins turned to ice water. Every emotion, humiliation, heartbreak was flash frozen, leaving a cold, crystalline clarity. She was demoting me in my own home. And where would I sleep? I asked, already knowing the answer. She gestured to the living room. "You can crash on the couch, right? It'll be fine." I looked at her and saw a complete stranger. The breathtaking entitlement. I wasn't her partner. I was convenient infrastructure. A slow smile spread across my face. "Yeah," I nodded. "That's a good idea?" "Oh, thank God. I knew you'd understand," she said, relieved. "He'll be here in an hour." Marcus arrived with the smug confidence of a man who knows he's won. "Hey man, thanks for this," he said with a curt nod. "No problem," I replied. "Make yourself at home." I watched them for 10 minutes, then stood up. Well, I'm exhausted. Turning in early, I grabbed my pillow and a blanket from the bedroom, set up my new sleeping arrangement on the couch, and lay down to listen. It didn't take long. The low conversation, the faint yawns, the bedroom door clicking shut. Then the faint, unmistakable creak of the bed frame. The hurt was secondary to focus. The blueprints in my mind were no longer for a building. They were for a clean, precise demolition. I waited until 2 a.m., then I moved. Every action was planned and silent. First, my work laptop, hard drives, and documents went into my messenger bag. A week's worth of clothes went into a duffel. Next, the sentimental assets. In the living room sat the Nexus, a swirling steel and wood sculpture I had commissioned for $3,000. My design, my concept, my money. Clara loved telling people we had it made. It was a status symbol for her, a monument to a lie for me. I carefully lifted it, wrapped it in a moving blanket, and carried it out. Then, the financial severance. Sitting in the hallway, I logged into my banking app. Clara was an authorized user on my credit card, a privilege she'd been abusing for months. I navigated to the card management screen. Deactivate card. Yes, done. I went through the shared subscriptions. Streaming meal kits all on my accounts. Log out all devices. Change password. Done. Finally, the communicate. I took out 2 sticky notes and wrote the same 4 words on each. Now it's all yours. I crept back into the bedroom. The moonlight illuminated them, tangled together in my sheets. My hand was steady. I pressed the first note to Marcus's forehead. He didn't stir. I moved to the other side and placed the second note on Clara's. A final invoice. After 3 trips to my car, I was gone. By 4:00 a.m., I was at an all-night diner with a black coffee, emailing my landlord. Subject, notice to vacate Unit 7B. Dear Mr. Henderson, please accept this email as my official 30-day notice to vacate. My lease will be terminated as of date 30 days from now. The final month's rent has been paid. Thank you. Sincerely, Leo Sterling. I hit send. The first domino had fallen. Update 1. The first 48 hours in my long-stay hotel room were blissfully silent. Then on Friday morning, my phone erupted. The text from Clara started as confused. "Where are you?" Then quickly escalated to entitled and accusatory. "Are you seriously giving me the silent treatment because Marcus stayed over? You're being childish." I ignored it all. The real fireworks began Saturday after her credit card was declined at the grocery store. "Leo, this is my food money. You can't just cut me off. It was so embarrassing. You better fix this right now." I saved the screenshots and archived the conversation. Her embarrassment was a consequence of her own design. Next, her sister Sasha called from an unknown number. "You absolute coward," she screeched. "You abandoned my sister. She's a wreck. You got all insecure because her friend needed a place to stay, and you threw a tantrum and ran away like a child, and you cut off her card. How was she supposed to live? The narrative was set. I was the villain. The blatant disrespect of being kicked out of my own bed was conveniently omitted. She has a job, Sasha, I said calmly. That barely covers her gas, Sasha shrieked. You can't just pull the rug out from under her. I'm not having this conversation with you, I said. She made her choices. Goodbye. I hung up and blocked her number. The climax of the week arrived Monday in the form of the official notice to vacate from the landlord. My phone vibrated like a trapped hornet with a flurry of texts. I just got a letter from the landlord. What did you do? Leo, you can't kick me out. I live here. This is my home. It's illegal. I knew I needed to send one final clear message. Clara, as I am the sole tenant on the lease, I have given my legal 30-day notice. The lease terminates at 11:59 p.m. on date. You will need to vacate by that time. Any items left behind will be considered abandoned as per the lease. This is not a negotiation. This is my final communication on the matter. I sent it then, blocked her number, and all her social media profiles, but entitled People Don't Accept Consequences. They retaliate. I discovered her next move this morning. I do freelance architectural renderings on the side, a business that relies on my online portfolio and reviews. When I logged on, my rating had plummeted. 4 new 1-star reviews had been posted over the weekend from anonymous profiles took my money and ran. A complete scam artist, sloppy work, plagiarized elements. It was a deliberate, malicious attempt to destroy my livelihood. My blood ran cold, then hot with anger. I spent the next 2 hours documenting everything, screenshotting the reviews, and noting the identical creation dates of the profiles. I contacted the platform support, providing evidence of the breakup, and showing that these clients had no record of ever commissioning or paying for work. They think this is a game of emotional terrorism. They brought a tantrum to a structural engineering exam. Update 2. The move-out deadline is less than a week away, and the siege has intensified. The freelance platform thankfully investigated my claim and removed the fraudulent reviews within a week, confirming they originated from a single IP address. A clean victory. Clara's camp just changed tactics. Her mother Diana called next, her voice dripping with faux concern. Leo, darling, Clara tells me there's been a terrible misunderstanding. She has a good heart. She just made a little mistake. You're destroying her life over a single night. The little mistake was showing me I was disposable in my own home, I replied. What Clara does now is up to her. This conversation is over. She called me cruel and heartless before hanging up. I blocked her number. Then Marcus, the conquering hero, sent me a message request on Instagram. Hey man, we need to talk. Clara is a mess because of what you did. You better make this right. Give her the apartment, or give her money to get a new place. His follow-up was more direct. I know people. You don't want to make this ugly a vague threat. I screenshotted everything, sent it to my lawyer friend Tom for his records, and blocked Marcus. I knew the final day would be the main event. I suspected Clara would try to squat, forcing a lengthy eviction. I had to outplan her. The revenge wasn't just about getting her out. It was about making the consequences as calculated and unavoidable as gravity. I hired a bonded moving company that specialized in eviction cleanouts. I paid Tom a consulting fee to be present as a legal observer. I coordinated with Mr. Henderson, the landlord, to meet us at noon on the final day for the key handover. The most crucial part was the digital decoupling. For 2 years, I had been paying for a premium cloud storage service under my name and my card. Clara used it for everything. Thousands of photos, her social media content, and her entire portfolio for her part-time job. She had no local backups. I spent a week downloading a complete copy onto an external hard drive. Not for her, but for my own legal protection. On the final day of the lease, I met my team in the parking lot. I knocked on the apartment door. Clara, it's Leo. I'm here with the landlord for the final walkthrough. I'm not leaving, she yelled from inside. This is my home. You'll have to evict me. Mr. Henderson sighed and used his master key. She is trespassing, he stated. We walked in. She was sitting on the couch with her arms crossed, Marcus standing behind her like a low-rent bodyguard. You can't just barge in here, she yelled. Tom stepped forward. Ma'am, Mr. Sterling's tenancy has ended. You are on this property without legal authority. We are asking you to leave. I'm not going anywhere, she spat. I nodded to the moving crew. Please begin. Anything that is not mine. Please box it up and place it on the curb." The two movers began methodically clearing the room with unnerving efficiency. Clara and Marcus stood there stunned. They expected a screaming match. They got a process. Then Clara's eyes landed on the empty shelf where the Nexus used to be. "Where is it?" she shrieked. "Where is my sculpture?" "You stole it." "And I'll call the cops." This was the moment I'd prepared for. I pulled a folder from my briefcase. "You mean this sculpture?" I said, handing her a packet of papers. "The one I commissioned. Here is the design email, the receipt for the $3,000 payment for my bank account, and the artist's certificate of authenticity made out to me." She stared at the papers, her face pale. Her narrative had just been demolished with documented proof. Within an hour, all of her worldly possessions were in a neat pile on the grass outside. As I was about to walk out for the last time, I turned to her and pulled out my phone. I opened the cloud service app and navigated to the account settings. I looked her right in the eyes. "You should have made backups." I hit the button cancel subscription and delete all data. A confirmation box popped up. "This action is permanent, and all data will be erased immediately." I pressed confirm. Her eyes widened in horror. What did you do?" "You wanted space," I said, my voice cold. "I'm giving it to you. All 2 terabytes of it." An automated email was already on its way to her account, confirming her data had been permanently deleted. I walked out of the empty apartment to the sound of her hysterical scream, muffled by the closing door. It was the sound of consequences delivered on schedule. Final update. The emotional debris from Clara's detonation of my life has finally settled. The aftermath I heard through a mutual acquaintance was chaotic for her. Her meltdown on the curb was legendary. The police came, saw the lease agreement with my name on it, and the termination notice, and informed her it was a civil matter and that she was trespassing. They waited while she and a reluctant Marcus moved her things into a hastily rented U-Haul. The loss of her digital life was catastrophic. Her portfolio was gone. Her entire online persona erased. The boutiques she worked for dropped her when she couldn't produce any of her previous work. The digital footprint of her career was gone. It wasn't illegal. The account was mine. Marcus predictably vanished. Faced with a distraught, jobless, and homeless Clara, he bailed once the drama outweighed the thrill. He stopped answering her calls within days. Defeated and broke, Clara had no choice but to drive her U-Haul of shame to her parents' doorstep. A 30-year-old woman forced back into her childhood bedroom because she thought disrespect was a viable strategy. A month later, a blustering letter from a budget lawyer arrived demanding $5,000 for wrongful eviction and the stolen shared art piece. I passed it to my lawyer friend Tom. He drafted a response that was a work of art. It included copies of the lease, the notice to vacate, an affidavit from the landlord, and the complete documentation proving my sole ownership of the Nexus. It ended by stating that any further contact would be considered harassment and would result in us seeking a restraining order and suing for legal fees. We never heard back. The first month in my new, smaller apartment was strange. I mourned the 3 years I had invested in a project with a rotten foundation. But slowly I rebuilt. My freelance business is thriving. Without the constant financial and emotional drain, I could focus. I took on bigger projects and reconnected with old friends. The peace is the best part. The quiet confidence that my home is mine. My revenge wasn't loud. It was quiet and architectural. I didn't destroy her life. I simply stepped out of it and stopped holding it up. I let her face the logical structural consequences of her own choices. She took my support for granted, assuming it was a permanent fixture. She learned that I was the foundation. And when the foundation is removed, the entire structure collapses. Last week, I bought a new piece of art for my apartment. It's a simple, elegant piece of woodwork. A single solid line that curves upwards. It's called a cent. It feels right. I'm building something new, and this time, the blueprints are all mine.